What's going on, everybody? David here, back with another video. So today we have a stimulus check update, stimulus package update, and of course I'm going to show you a clip. I like doing this every video, at least showing you one clip. I like for you guys to hear from the actual people involved. Today we're not going to be able to do that, unfortunately, but we do have another clip from Shepard Smith. And Shepard Smith has been taking up the role as far as the media as really going after these politicians when it comes to this stimulus package, because we've seen different interviews. We've seen some tough interviews, but most of them are not that tough. It's just allowing the politicians to come on and just kind of say what they want to do, and not really going back at them when it comes to answering some of these tough questions, and why are the Democrats against the Republicans and the Republicans against the Democrats, and whatever the Democrats say the Republicans don't. I mean, this is what's going on. You just have each side blaming each other. So we're going to show you a quick clip of Shepard Smith, and then I'm going to give you my thoughts about state and local funding, because this has been one of those sticking points. For the last 7 months, they've been arguing about the state and local funding. Should states get funding? Should they not get funding? This has been an ongoing thing, and it's not moving anywhere. And this is what's really keeping us from getting another stimulus package. So I want to talk about that. I'm going to give you my thoughts when it comes down to that. But first off, you guys can do me a favor. Please hit the like button. It does help with the YouTube algorithm. Also, please subscribe to the channel. Hit that little bell notification. That way you'll get notified anytime we put out a video. All right, so the first thing we're going to do is listen to Shepard Smith, and he brings up some real good points. We're going to talk about them. Here we go.
The wait for COVID disaster relief drags on. 259 days since Congress last created legislation to assist Americans in need. So far, they're all talk and no action, and they're failing the people. Either they don't feel the pain of everyday citizens whose bank accounts are drained and whose pantries are bare, or they don't care. How bad is it? Washington knows. They know that renters owe an estimated $70 billion in back rent. They know if they don't act, 30 to 40 million Americans could lose their homes in the new year. They know Americans are hungry. 26 million people in the richest nation on earth say they don't have enough to eat. They know 2/3 of our fellow Americans have been living paycheck to paycheck since COVID struck, and that millions more have no paycheck at all. They know. And rather than act, they dither and deflect and turn a cold shoulder to the suffering masses. They cling to the power that came to them from the people, whom they abandon and dismiss summarily. There's a bipartisan plan that will help in some ways, but it's getting nowhere in the dysfunction of the Capitol. Mitch McConnell says he will not give it a vote in the broken political system that rewards the elected ones for fighting with each other, rather than for making compromise to serve the people. Many there bow to the special interests and the corporations and dismiss the millions of hungry Americans on the cliff of financial ruin. They leave the victims of COVID's destruction to fend for themselves, and they show no shame doing it. That's Washington, of, by, and for the people in 2020. Dysfunction and failure amid crisis and fear.
All right, so there you go. Shepard Smith, he is really going after these politicians. And I said this a couple of days ago, rightfully so. I mean, you have politicians that are just not wanting to do anything. You have Mitch McConnell not even wanting to bring forward this bipartisan proposal, not even wanting to bring it to the floor, probably in fear because it might pass. Now, I'm not saying that this bipartisan proposal has everything that it should have in it. Stimulus checks need to be in our next stimulus package. But Mitch McConnell's not even willing to bring it to the floor. And that's a lot of power. And I've talked about this in the past. The Speaker of the House, the Leader of the Senate, they have a lot of power because they can bring things to the floor. So even if it's something that's a good package, they don't have to bring it to the floor if they don't want to. And they can go with whatever they want. Or people have to kind of go to them. Politicians have to go to them and say, okay, is this good to go on the floor? Can we work out a deal? And so they're actually working out a deal with Mitch McConnell to try to get things to the floor. But in a situation like this, Mitch McConnell doesn't see the need to bring this to the floor, so it's not going to go anywhere. We've also heard Bernie Sanders and Josh Hawley say we need an up or down vote when it comes to stimulus checks. Either you want it or you don't. And they're giving a deadline of December 18th in order for that to happen. So we're going to have to see where that goes. We'll have to follow that. And you also heard Shepard Smith say either the politicians, they don't feel the pain or they just don't care. And I would agree with one thing. They don't feel the pain. They definitely don't feel the pain, not in their situation as far as they have a job and they're still making the same amount of money that they were making before the pandemic. And that's another thing we should really be focused on. The fact that they're making $170,000 a year. A politician's making that much. Politicians, and this is the way that I've always felt when it comes to pay, their pay should mirror what the national average is. So whatever the national average is, that's what they should be getting paid. They should be reminded every day how much the average person is making in this country. And so we should not be seeing them make $170,000, and that's well over the average. That would be a good way for them to feel the same pressure and feel some of the same pain when they have to pay a little bit extra for things now during the pandemic. Or we should be in a situation where if we can't get an emergency proposal through, then guess what? Their pay should stop. But even in situations where the government gets shut down, and I know this has been talked about, and I have heard some people comment, well, if we shut the government down, then they're not going to get paid, these politicians. No. Guess what? They still get paid. They're essential workers. And so they will still get their pay. They're not going to have to do furloughs or anything like that. They're still going to get their money. So when it comes down to it, we need to be in a situation where that's what they make, the national average. They shouldn't make anything more than that. And maybe even make less than the national average. That'll give them an incentive to really push that national average up. But it's just crazy when it comes down to politicians. And I guess we're actually seeing this now. We're seeing the fact that if you are out of touch, meaning if you make so much money where you can't even relate to a person who is struggling, then should you really be a politician? Because how are you going to help people if you don't really know what they're going through or you don't care to know? Some politicians do. Some politicians are making more, but they care to know how other people are doing. But there are some politicians that just don't care. And so just something to think about, maybe something to try to push forward. Maybe we'll have some politicians, we'll have a movement of politicians that say, yeah, we should reduce our pay. It's going to be hard. It's going to be tough, but maybe that should be the talk. Maybe some new politicians coming in that are running for office will start some type of a movement where they want to reduce the amount of money that politicians are bringing in. All right, one last thing I want to talk about is state and local funding. So this is interesting because we keep hearing politicians and Mitch McConnell and some of the Republican senators, they don't want to do the whole state and local funding. And one thing I find really amazing, all states are hurting right now because of the pandemic. And they are spending more money than they would normally spend because of the pandemic. And because in states you have businesses shutting down or being forced to shut down, that means less revenue for the state and local government. So they're not bringing in as much money. And so it just amazes me how you would have politicians say, we don't want to send more money to help states, their own state. That's how crazy it is. You have politicians representing people in states, and they don't want to send money to their states. That is just amazing to me. They would rather send that money out to corporations and different businesses, right? PPP funding has been in every proposal. But the state and local funding, for whatever reason, they don't want to send that money to the states. Oh, well, these blue states are just going to mishandle the money. They're going to spend it on things that they owed money on before, like pensions and things like that. And that could be your argument. That's fine. You can always earmark it for certain things. This money doesn't have to go out to whatever the state wants to spend it on. It can go out to what you want the state to spend it on. And it could be pandemic related. We might not even be having this argument about stimulus checks and why stimulus checks aren't in this bipartisan proposal if state and local funding were getting money, because they could create their own stimulus checks, just like New Mexico did. So when we're looking at this whole situation, we're talking about state and local funding. State and local governments should get funding, just like PPP. And when it comes to this PPP money, we're not asking the same questions that we're asking of state and local governments. State and local governments, they're concerned, how bad off were they before the pandemic? And how are they spending the money? We're not asking those same questions in PPP. You don't hear that. How bad off was the business before? And where are they spending their money? And we don't want the PPP money going to businesses who mishandled their money. You don't hear that talk. But when it comes to state and local government, that's what you're hearing. And so it's really unfortunate that we have politicians that don't even want to help out their own states and their own districts. It's amazing to me how we've gotten that far off where politicians don't want to bring home the bacon. They don't want to bring that money back to their states. It's amazing. And if you can't spend all the money, that's fine. Then you send it back. If you earmark it for certain things, pandemic related only, and they can't spend it for pandemic related only, then they send the money back. So you're not losing any additional money. You're just helping out the states, or at least giving them the funds that they need to get past this pandemic. So I want to know what you guys think about this, because I think the big talk, these politicians saying that it's no deal if we can't have state and local funding, which I agree with. And then you have the other side saying that we're not going to have state and local funding in this next proposal or this next bill. What do you guys think about that? Money going back to the states to help states in a time of need, to help states help people in a time of need, if you want to look at it that way. Let me know what you think down below. If you like this video, please give me a thumbs up. Please subscribe for more, and I'll talk to you in the next one. Bye.